We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is Sid's dream team. Wow, we haven't done one of these for a while. Great to have you on, Sid, and listen to your team.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm sure I'll annoy quite a few people with some of my choices.
But for those of you who've never seen one of these before, there is an entire playlist of dream teams. Most of the people on the show have done one now, so we just thought, with Sid being a regular now, it would be good to get his views. And the way that it runs is you have a 1 to 11, of course. We give you some substitutes, and you can have your manager as well. So, Sid, Songs from the Attic, 1977. Go and give him a subscribe to his channel. Who was your goalkeeper?
Well, I'm going to give some context on my choices first.
Yeah, great. Do it.
So my first ever match where I went on my own was against Chelsea in 1981. So what I've done is, and we won 1-0. John Brownlee, if I recall rightly, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am. I've decided to go with just players that I've physically seen live. So I'm not going with players who, my first game that I remember watching was the 1974 Cup final. So I'm not going with any of the players from the 70s. So players who might have made it like Super Mac, Terry McDermott, for example. I'm not picking players who went on to be even better or played better at other clubs and then maybe came to Newcastle at the end or the beginning of their careers. Otherwise, I might have had the likes of Alan Kennedy in. I was definitely have had Terry McDermott in. But when we saw Terry Mack, he was towards the end of his career. It's not quite the same player as he was at Liverpool. So that's the context I'm going. 81 onwards for players I've physically seen. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of doing it as well. It's only players that you've seen and only you can judge on them, you know.
So my goalkeeper, controversially, is Nick Pope.
Ooh.
And so I've gone with Nick Pope. And the reason why is I think of all the keepers that I've seen at the club, he's by far the first to transform the role in terms of being a sweeper keeper. We've never had one before. Pav was always amazing with his feet. Great shot stopper. Maybe he's not so great at crosses. Shea Given, possibly as good a shot stopper as Pope, I think, in my opinion, but never came off his line. Never commanded the box as well, as far as I'm concerned. Harper was probably better off the box and not as great a shot stopper. And then we've had some dross as well in goal. Kevin Carr, also a very good goalkeeper, may I add. But no, Nick Pope, super keeper, excellent goalkeeper. He's brilliant with his throwing. He can throw a ball 50 yards and drop it at your feet. He's not great with his feet, let's be honest. And that stops him from being world class. Therefore, in my opinion, we've never had a world class goalkeeper. We've had some excellent keepers, but we've never had a truly world class keeper, like the likes of Alisson, for example, or Edison as well. So that's one area. If I was to redo this show in 5 years, there's 4 or 5 players I would expect to possibly be gone. And Pope, as great as I think he is, and I do, I think he would have saved us another 10 points this season. I would probably expect him to be gone at that point. But a terrific goalkeeper, great shot stopper. Some of the saves have been unbelievable. So, yeah, he's my choice in goal. Really great at corners, by the way, and gives loads of confidence to the back four. So, yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Been a big change having a goalkeeper who can do that. And he's certainly a modern goalkeeper. I don't think Nick Pope is featured in any of the other in any of the other dream teams. I stand to be corrected. But yeah, great choice, mate. Okay, that's your goalkeeper, your number one. Who is the first line of your defence?
Well, I've gone 3-5-2 or 3 and the rest, whatever it works out at.
Right, okay.
Because, again, I don't think Newcastle have had a world-class left-back. So I've decided to go with 3 at the back instead. And I'm obviously going for a team that I think will win in terms of... So I've gone with the formation. So this upsets the apple cart a little bit in terms of some top players not getting into the team. But I've gone as left centre-half, I've gone Philip Albert. So I've gone with the Prince. Just what a footballer. A magic wand of a left foot. He was good defensively, which people overlook because they all just imagine him, he's charging on his horse, blowing that trumpet, flying up the pitch, shouting attack. But he was much more than that. He was a player who did play midfield as well for his country on occasions, and he would play centre half. He was so good on the ball. Great goals against the likes of Leicester, Man United, of course, with the chip and a header. People forget about the header. Man City, Chelsea, just a great, great player. Read the game really well, really comfortable on the ball, could pass it superbly, could score, could create something out of nothing. Just a top, genuinely world-class footballer. I remember watching him in the 94 World Cup thinking, wow, what a player he is. And then we signed him. Couldn't believe it. I was absolutely buzzing when we got him. And he's just a magnificent footballer. Treat harshly as well at the end of his time at Newcastle, in my opinion. Poorly treat at the end. Just a top player. Great player. The Prince is my number 2.
And do you have a favourite goal that Philip Albert scored?
Yeah, of course. Everyone goes with the chip. There was a volley, though. I'm trying to remember who the volley was against. When he just...
Man City.
Yeah, the volley was great. Go and check it out again online. It's just fantastic when he just sort of, he's mid-air and he just smashes it in. It's a great goal. So I'm going to say that instead of the chip because everybody goes with the chip. So there we go.
I think when I interviewed him, which the interview will come out later this year as part of the Entertainers book, I think he went for the chip obviously as well. But I think he did remind me that he scored a couple of other belters and scoring wasn't something he was afraid of.
No, he was just truly, again, I'd say a world-class player. We'd never really seen a player like that at the club before. Yes, Steve Howe might have been stuck at the back sometimes as he's charging up the pitch or Peacock, but he could do the defensive side as well. So he was a fully rounded player. Just tremendous. Absolutely great. And I loved his attitude as well. He was able to stick his foot in as well. He had a slightly dirtier side to him as well, which I always think a good centre-half should have.
There is an interesting story that I think it's Steve Howe or John Beresford tells, and it's when they used to stand in the tunnel on a live TV game on Sky. Do you remember Sid the Sexist from Viz?
Yeah, of course.
Well, do you remember this? I'm not going to say it on here because we'll get closed down. But there was a particular phrase that he used to shout about a certain part of a woman's anatomy. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. The second word was oot. Anyway, apparently in the tunnel against Manchester United, Albert's at the back of the queue, and at the top of his voice, he shouts that phrase, and that's why all the lads are laughing in the tunnel. And apparently he's done it on numerous occasions on TV games because he was a big fan of the Viz video that Steve Watson used to show on the team bus. So there's a useless bit of trivia about your first defender, mate. Who's your second defender?
A second is the best defender I've seen at the club in all my time of being there, and that's Jonathan Woodgate in the middle. Again, world class. And it's apt that you've got the picture against Drogba in the semi-final of the UEFA Cup, because he marked him out of the game. And Drogba, as we know, is a world-class centre-forward. Drogba tore apart in the second leg because Woodgate was injured. Otherwise, I think we would have won that. We would have got through. We'd have won. I think we'd have won the competition. And Woodgate was he was a proper Rolls Royce centre half. He was elegant on the ball. He was fast, not lightning, but he was fast. He was great in the air, and he's the best reader of the game that I've seen in terms of a centre half. He read the game so well. So his first yard or two were already in his head, and he already had pace. Injuries blighted his career. I genuinely believe it should have been him and Ferdinand as the two centre halves for England over Terry. That's how good a player I think he was. If you listen to Ferdinand talk, and he raves about how good Woodgate was as a centre half. You know, he was, and you'll talk to all Leeds fans, and they'll all say Woodgate was a better player. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Certainly, he's a defender, and that's where he was. He didn't go too far forward, but defensively, he was absolutely magnificent. Benchmark centre half for me. I've not seen a better defender at the club.
Okay, great choice in a lot of people's teams, and didn't have a great deal of time at Newcastle in terms of appearances.
Well,
but
odd games, wasn't it? But
fantastic player. One of Sir Bobby's best signings, I think.
Class. You looked at him, and you go, wow. You know, he was a step up. I mean, apparently the story was as well. Of course, I think John Terry said he was on his way to Newcastle as well at one point under Bobby Robson. He's actually literally on just about to get onto the train at some point, but that was another story. That would have been some centre half pairing. But
it would have been, no doubt about it. Okay, who makes up the three?
The third, I've gone with Fabian Schär on the right hand side, just because again he reads the game well. When he plays well, he's magnificent. Great passer of the ball, so it gives you that other option as well. He plays really well in the back three, in my opinion. Just a terrific passer of the ball. Decent in the air, if not amazing. All right pace-wise. Again, he might be a player that in a few years' time I'd definitely have somebody else. But at the minute, he's a super player. He is a terrific player. And this year, he's been absolutely excellent. In fact, he's been excellent since Eddie Howe came in. Because as we know, the previous manager was desperate to get shot of him by the looks of it. And he's just been incredible under Eddie Howe. He's been magnificent. Great passer of the ball. Good at scoring a few goals as well. He gets 4 or 5 goals a season, which is terrific for a centre-half who doesn't take penalties, for example. I just really like him. Love his attitude. Love the fact that even at this age, he's come through and proved a number of people wrong, which is, I always love that sort of story. Like the underdog. And yeah, a magnificent footballer, a wonder of a pass, and he's quite versatile. He can play it on the left or the right, which is quite unusual for a centre half. So yeah, top draw, Fabian Schär.
Wow! Out of your four players, your first 4 players, two players who are currently playing, which again is quite rare in Dream Team. Yeah. I can see now why you said you might upset a few people. Okay, so you're saying 3-5-2. You've got your goalkeeper. You've got your 3. Start of your 5, then, please.
Right, my number 5 captain and sweeper, and I've gone with Barry Venison. A magnificent hairdo, may I add? First of all,
I was wondering what you were going to say there.
Magnificent mane, like Lionel we used to call him, or Aslan. Just a great player. After Trippier, he's the best captain I've seen at the club. He played sweeper for Newcastle on a number of occasions. I think he played there for England on an occasion or two. Excellent at right back as well, of course. So if we were to adapt my team and switch to go 4-4-2, he can just slot straight in and go on the right-hand side. Hence the fact Trippier doesn't get in, because Trippier doesn't really play sweeper. So Venison can cover both positions. As I say, a great footballer, very, very comfortable on the ball. Of course, he won the league a couple of times with Liverpool as well. So he's a winner, which I think is really important to have in your team, to have players who've won things. And he's certainly one of them. Just a terrific player. But as I say, he was always a great captain. I used to love it when he'd come out. And he'd go up to the Gallagher and he'd get the crowd sort of pumped up, he'd giving it the fist pumps. And the crowd would just sort of react really, really positively. So, yeah, fabulous player, Barry Venison. And I know it's a surprise for a number of people, but I think he was a great player. I absolutely loved watching him. I'd have him over the likes of Batty and others, because I just think he had a bit more about him as a player. So, yeah, he's my sweeper, Barry Venison.
Yeah, he used to fight like cat and dog as well with KK. You know what I mean? Always very
Yeah,
forthright, give an opinion. But
yeah, you can imagine.
I would certainly say he was one of those players, a bit like Brian Kilcline, who was a key signing in the
Yeah,
next stage of the entertainers.
he was. He was without a doubt. I mean, Kilcline, you can argue. I would actually argue, along with Trippier, as the most important signing that we've had in the last 40 years or so. However, Venison, unlike Kilcline, could really play football. And I'm sure Killer would be the first to say that, And Venison was a top footballer, great first touch, good reader of the game, really good passer, real commander of men as well. So, he was just a great captain, a good player, good solid pro, which I think you need. So, yeah, he's my choice and he's my captain.
Good stuff. Good shout. Okay, next in the five.
Next, well, I might go. This is going to upset people. Double pivot, so I may go that way, and I've gone with Bruno.
Oh, he's got Bruno. Bruno in the middle.
Bruno. Yeah, Bruno in the middle. I mean, he's a fantastic footballer. He's good defensively, great going forward. His tight control is exceptional. Possibly the best I've seen in terms of just flicking it around the corner of a player. You can tell he's a street footballer. And I love that. I love that fact that, like we were as kids, you'd play garages, in somebody's old garage area, and you'd be smashing the ball off the garages and tiny little tight areas, and you had to do little flicks to get past players. You can tell he's done all that sort of stuff in the Brazilian streets, or he's played in little alleyways, and he's had to do something unusual to get past a player. He's got that really great close control. I love the way he's able to just dink it over somebody's head and run round them, and these aren't little fluke bits of skill that he does. He's clearly done it on a regular basis, and he's been brought up that way. And so he gets in because he's quite audacious at times. You think, wow, that's that's taking the mix sometimes. But he's just brilliant. He's been a breath of fresh air. I remember the first time I saw him, he did something. He came off the bench his first game, and he did a move in the box. And the crowd went silent because they thought he was going to mess it up, and he didn't. And it was brilliant, and it was an audacious bit of skill. And you're thinking, wow, that's took a lot of nerve, for a first touch in your first game at Newcastle at St James's Park. And he did it, and he was great. And he went past the man. I thought, wow, he's some player. He is a top world-class footballer. I genuinely think he gets into a World 22 at the moment. I think he's that good a footballer. He can play for any team in the world. And he does, unfortunately, replaces a couple of other choices that I could have had in there. I think he's also able to go forward. If he was playing further forward, I'm convinced he'd get more than 10 goals a season as well. But at the minute, I've just got him slightly further back alongside, just maybe he's ahead of Barry Venison, just in terms of a defensive midfielder.
Okay, good stuff. Good to have Bruno in there, another modern day player. It makes Sid's team. So who's next?
Next, the player who's got the best first touch I've ever seen at the club, and that's Nobby Solano. Again, I'm going to use the word world class, but he was. If he played for Man United, they'd have been wetting themselves in the press. He was as good as Beckham. Beckham was a top player. He's as good a crosser as Beckham, and very much like him, he wasn't electric in terms of pace. He was quick, but he didn't have that pace to sort of bomb past the player. But what he did do was just that little touch and then ping it round the player. He was an exceptional reader of the game as well. As I say, his close control. His first touch was unbelievable. I've never seen a player that good in terms of a first touch. His crossing was always sensational. He was the scourge of Leeds United, as we remember. Some great goals. I love the fact, and I always like players like this, who were able to just to bend the ball beautifully on the outside of their foot as well as on the inside of their foot, and he could do it. He had a real South American sort of touch about him. Magnificent, and also, just as important, he could easily have played in the middle of the park and dictate play from there. If Bobby Robson, for example, wanted him to do that, I would have personally played him a bit more in the middle sometimes. But of course, his crossing was so good on the right. He was just an exceptional footballer. I mean, you're special when Maradona calls you the little maestro. That's how good he is. When the greatest player of all time describes you in that manner. his crossing for Shearer was almost telepathic. It was just brilliant. He could just whip a great ball in, great at free kicks. As I say, great reading of the game. And Dalglish originally signed him as a sort of wing back, didn't he? He could easily play wing back as well, especially in the earlier days when he had that pace to go up and down. So Nobby Solano, top player, genuinely world-class footballer, and not enough spoken about him. And what really annoyed me was the season Robson sold him to Aston Villa. And he'd been magnificent all the way up to that point. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, we had James Milner who took over for a while. And Milner, good player, but not on the same level. Nowhere near on the same level in terms of crossing and stuff. And then at Villa, Nobby Solano was player of the season, and then we bought him back again. I think it was it under Souness we bought him back. And he was fantastic when he came back. 1 in 5, 1 goal in every 5 as an average, which is pretty decent for on the wing. Just a truly top player. Top player. I'd love to see him being involved in the club. I really would.
Okay, last one before we go to a quick break. Who else is in the midfield?
Well, this is the easiest choice of them all. Number 8 is the best player I've ever seen, our Messi, and that's Peter Beardsley. Comfortably the best player I've ever seen. He did the lot. You know, his passing was sublime. Shooting, he could shoot and score from all sorts of ridiculous angles. Some of the goals that we've seen him score. I mean, one against Spurs, he was like, I remember him when he danced past a couple of players and smashed it in. The one against Norwich when he was on the far end of the box was an impossible angle, and he just honed it into the top corner. Incredible. I mean, he wasn't just a scorer of great goals. He was a great goal scorer and a provider. He had everything. He had pace. He had skill. He had vision. He seemed to have ages on the ball, which is always the great sign of a great player in any sport. Some of the best goals I've ever seen, some of the best moments I've ever seen. That first hat-trick I saw him score against Man City when we beat them 5-0. The Joe Corrigan goal when he chipped Joe Corrigan for Brighton. I was parallel to him in the paddock. Was it the A wing or the A wing? I think it was called then. And I was at parallel behind the bloody fence, and I watched him slide in, do the challenge, and then chip big Joe Corrigan, and it was an incredible goal. He's got so many incredible goals. You think of the Portsmouth goal when he leaves about 4 players on their backsides. He just had everything. And I advise people, if they're not, and I'm sure all the fans probably know anyway, but type in on YouTube, Messi versus Beardsley, and there's like a 5 or 6 minute compilation. It's amazing to watch because Messi's goals just mirror the goals that Peter Beardsley do. You think, wow. I remember, I've shown it a few people, they go, wow, that's incredible. He was that good a player. He would feature in my all-time England 11. He's that good a player. For me, never spoken about enough. I know they've had him on the show recently with Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer and Micah Richards. One of the greatest players this country's ever produced. Just sensational. World class, all day long. Top player. Best player I've seen.
Yeah, I would agree, mate. Certainly my favourite player of all time at Newcastle. And Peter Beardsley actually watches that video that you've talked about. He likes to watch that as well. So one thing about Peter, he just enjoyed watching himself.
That's fair enough. If I'd scored them, I'd be watching it as well.
All right, we're going to have a quick break. We'll be back after the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk, telephone 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460, or mobile 0791 666 4174. Thanks to Media Arts for the technical side of things. And you can also find us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button underneath this video. Hit the all notifications bell so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to share to your social media. If you want to join the channel, then click join for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become a member for a one-off £25 payment, email john@nufcmatters.com or go to membership at the website nufcmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, hold your camera over the QR code and it'll take you straight there. We also help the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to the matchday bucket and you can leave a virtual donation today. And don't forget, the end of season due is on the 20th of July. Tickets are on sale for a tenner, money going towards Dementia Matters. Super Matt and Gibbo live on stage, Ask George live on stage, and the Longstands live on stage. 5 o'clock till late, 20th of July, Tyneside Irish Centre. And tickets are available for £10 from nufcmatters.com and from newcastlelegends.com. And there's also an evening with Rob Lee in the summer, Friday the 2nd of August. That takes place at the O2 City Hall in Newcastle, and tickets are available for that from as little as £15 from ticketmaster.co.uk. Well worth going along to that work with Rob quite a few times myself as well. And if you're looking for something a bit different in the morning, 7 till 9, only a couple of weeks left of the season for this mayhem. We're going to have a summer break and we'll be back in August. But the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show with myself, Rye and Ted is live on Toon Radio weekdays 7 till 9 a.m. It's on DAB, it's on smart speakers, and you can find it at toonuk.com. Well worth a listen if I do say so myself. Okay, we are busy doing Sid's dream team. We've got a goalkeeper, Nick Pope. We've got Philip Albert, Jonathan Woodgate, and Fabian Scher at the back. We've gone into the midfield now. We've got Barry Venison. We've got Bruno. We've got Nobby Solano. And when we hit the break, we'd hit Peter Beardsley. So who else have we got?
Number 9 is the obvious one. Another person who's won a title as well, alongside the likes of Beardsley, Bruno in France, I believe. And who else won a title? Barry Venison, of course. And it's obviously Big Al, so Alan Shearer. Easy choice, Howie. Come on, seriously. He's the best striker on the planet for the first season that we had him, before the big injury, of course. I mean, at that point, he was something super special. At the time, he was quick, if not lightning, but he was quick. He was very strong, great in the air, and I mention this a lot, but he could finish with either foot, which is overlooked a bit, you know. And also, he had a great first touch. He could kill a ball really, really well, and people overlook this quite often with Al. His first touch was really, really exceptional. He was a top player. I mean, I read recently that's something ridiculous along the lines of, if inflation was to apply today, he would be valued at 256 million pounds, which I did laugh at. But you know, he was that good. He was that sensational as a centre forward. You know, he was renowned worldwide. Best summed up, I remember on my honeymoon, my wife and I, when we were in Sorrento many years ago. And I remember going down for my breakfast for the Newcastle top, and the waiter just called us Mr. and Mrs. Shearer for the next 2 weeks. But I mean, yeah, he was just a top player. He changed his whole game after the injury. He lost, I would say, a couple of yards of pace that he had. Totally changed his game and was still able to bang in 25, 30 goals a season. But he wasn't that same player. That first year, he was unplayable. He was that good. It was literally a goal a game, because people forget as well, the first season he was out for quite a bit with injuries, and he still scored about 25 goals. It was like a goal a game. He was just an absolute machine at the club. What a player. What a top player. Yeah, I would love to know what he would have got if he hadn't had all those big injuries in career, because his figures would have been absolutely frightening. Just a truly world-class centre forward. Yeah. And as I say, for a while, the best centre forward in the world, which is, you know, summed up by the fact that we broke the world transfer record as well, of course. But yeah, great player, top man.
Yeah, I've often said as well, if Newcastle never won anything in my time as a football fan, at least I saw Alan Shearer. That in itself is worth its weight in gold, seeing him play for you.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, he was just he could do everything. He was so good in the air. He was intimidating. I think some defenders were intimidated before he even got on the pitch. When they'd see Shearer in the tunnel, they'd be thinking, "Oh Christ, I'm going to really be on my mettle here. We can't give him a chance because he'll score." He was ferocious in his tackle as well. He could give it as well as take it, and he never moaned. He just got up and got on with it. He had an incredible free kick. It was an absolute rocket. I remember one of the free kicks he scored. They used to give, they don't do it anymore now, was those free kicks that they give inside the box.
Yeah.
I remember one of the goals, he was about 9 yards out. And I was thinking, one of those poor so-and-sos is going to be standing on the line. And Shearer's we all know he's going to run up and blast the hell out of it. And he hit it so hard. I'm sure one of the players moved out the way because it was flying at him. It would have absolutely killed him. And it went in the back of the net. He just had an absolute rocket on him. I've seen some of the best goals ever. I mean, I was at the Everton game. I remember being at the Everton game when he smashed that volley in. And the ground went, the best goals are when the ground goes silent for a split second. As if to say, wow, did I really see that? And then all hell erupts and everybody's just, wow. And then the crowd just jump up and go nuts. And that was one of those goals. Also, of course, the one when he broke Jackie Milburn's record as well. That was absolutely fabulous to be at that game. Yeah, just top notch. Truly
Great story from Steve Howie about a game that he played against Shearer for Man City. It had been a build-up to the game. Howie'd been suffering from an injury and took some injections into his foot. And the football grapevine, of course, it got out that he'd been having injections into this bad foot. So, of course, when Shearer comes up against Steve Howie in the game, and he's backing into him for the first time, they're having a bit of banter on the pitch, and how we can see Shearer looking down, trying to work out which is his left and which is his right, because he's trying to work out which foot's his bad foot so he can stamp on it. So he basically said, I can see what you're doing, you know what I mean? And I'm not, I'm not going to give you a chance to hit my foot. Anyway, there was another incident in the game where they go up for a ball and Howie's flailing elbow hits Shearer smack in the face and it breaks his nose.
Wow.
And it was, listen, Shearer could give it and Shearer could take it, but he popped his nose in that particular game. Anyway, he says Shearer had the last laugh because he scored the winner and they won 1-0 Newcastle. But in the players' lounge after the game, Steve was in there with his wife and his family, and he's standing talking at the bar, and lo and behold, as he's ordering a drink, he just feels this searing pain in his foot. And Alan Shearer has crept up behind him and stamped on his foot while he was at the bar. He said, got him back. It's a brilliant story.
That's a great story. That's absolutely top draw. I remember at the time when I first seen him, I was going out with a girl who was from Blackburn, and she was a Blackburn fan. And she was in their away end, and we were in the Gallagher, and Shearer was playing for Blackburn, and he'd been out with a big, long injury. And he came on and he scored, and he did the salute in front of the Gallagher, and the crowd were giving him dog's abuse.
Okay, then we're up to player 10. Who's your number 10 in the team?
My number 10 this was a really tough choice because there's a number of centre forwards I could have gone with, of course, the likes of Cole and all, Demba Ba even, and he's acting so on and so forth in KK. But I've actually gone with Sir Leslie of Ferdinand. Just brilliant. I went because it was such a good partnership. That one season, the partnership was just sensational. And they missed a number of games together as well. They played a number of games together and missed a number of games. Honestly, it still riles me that we got rid of him. He was just magnificent. He was very, very quick. He's the best I've ever seen in the air, alongside Duncan Ferguson, who obviously Ferguson had like a foot advantage on him. Same with Andy Carroll as well, actually. But Les just seemed to hang. I've never seen a player before hang in the air for such a long time. It was almost defied the law of physics. It was just remarkable. He'd just run, jump up in the air, stay there for about 5 seconds, and then nutted in. It was just incredible. He had absolute power. His first touch was all right, but he was just really quick, and he knew where the back of the net was. It's such a shame that in his first season that he broke his toe, because I do think it hampered him in the second half of the season when we were going for the title. And he won PFA Player of the Year, of course, under us as well. I think Pellier gave him the award. I mean, he was just a top player. Very, very different to his predecessor, Andy Cole. Cole was the best finisher I've seen in the box, a proper old school finisher. Les was something totally different. Cole very rarely scored with his head. Les scored loads with his head, but was equally good on the ground. Great on a one-on-one situation. Les was superb one-on-one with a keeper. He really was. He would just knock it wide and smash it in. Just no messing around, no fancy stuff. He was just very straight to the point. Just a terrific, really good player. And I remember he came back. Now, remind me, was it Wolves he came back against us for, Steve, once?
Yes, I think it was. Yes.
And he scored an absolute scorcher. He just ran about 30 yards and smashed it in. And I remember he came on, he got the biggest round of applause I've probably ever heard from a crowd. He got the biggest round of applause. Everybody stand up, chanting his name, doing the whole bit. And then his first touch, the crowd just booed him for the rest of the game.
Brilliant.
Which is great, which is the way it should be, you know.
Yeah,
and just this sheer affection and the love from the crowd, because we know he didn't want to go. He was forced to go through the board. Not Kenny Dalglish. It's in Dalglish's Terry Mack's book says that Dalglish was forced to sell Ferdinand, and it wasn't his choice. And he asked him not to go. It was the board who went way over his head. And so it's one of the great urban myths, isn't it, that Dalglish sold him when he didn't. So Sir Les, just a truly great player. And can you imagine some of the, Les just in the air with a Nobby Solano type of cross? He would have been awesome. Absolutely awesome. And that probably leads into my next player.
Who is
Chris Waddle. So if you'd had Nobby on one side and Waddler on the other, the crossing would have been incredible. Him and Shearer would have just been sort of licking their lips with the amount of goals that they'd be banging in. And if you haven't got that, you've got Peter Beardsley behind them just slotting them through. So, it's just sort of all-out attack from that point. And then you got Bruno and Barry Venison holding the fort, if you like. Waddle, just a great player. I seen him in 81. He was playing when I started going. I seen him through the promotion seasons, of course, when you had Peter Beardsley, Chris Waddle, and Kevin Keegan, and then just behind them you had Terry Mack. And it was a great team. You could tell Waddle was going to be a great player. He just had it. He looked lethargic, but he was actually deceptively quick. He had that really sort of laid-back gait in terms of the way he would run on the pitch. But he had exceptional skill. His close control was magnificent. He could just drop his shoulder and you'd see the players would go one way and he'd go the other. He had the step over when nobody else was doing that. He had a number of different tricks. And when I was a left footer as a kid, I was left wing, but I would like Waddle. I used to like playing on the right and cutting inside or going around the other side as well. And Waddle would often play on the right as well as on the left, which again seems to get forgotten. He just was superb. The fact that when he went to Nice, he was known as the magician, not Nice, Marseille, sorry, he was known as the magician, tells you all you need to know. I mean, he was up for the Ballon d'Or at one point. He was PFA Player of the Year when he came back with Sheffield Wednesday, and Keegan tried to buy him back in as well at the time. And Gary Lineker recently said he signed for Spurs because he knew Waddle was going to be there. And as soon as Waddle left, as soon as he signed, he left. And he goes, I might as well have just kissed 15 goals a season goodbye. That's how good he was, 15 goals a season as a provider easily. And his goal ratio is superb for Newcastle. Every 3.5 games he scored a goal, which is tremendous from the wing. That's why he's ahead of the likes of Ginola and Robert, although Robert's got a great goal ratio, may I add. That's why he's ahead of those players, because his goal ratio is magnificent. He's possibly the most skillful player I've seen at the club. He's certainly right up there, probably along with Ginola, funnily enough. He could just do it all. He was a top world-class footballer. He was great for England as well, of course, and obviously great for Spurs and great for Marseille and Sheffield Wednesday. Just a top player. And I think he was at Newcastle till he was about 24, 25. Unfairly called names when he left. The players left Newcastle in those days. Unfortunately, that's the sort of club we were in the mid-80s. And let's be honest, Jack Charlton having Chris Waddle and Peter Beardsley, all right, hump it up the front, lads, is not really the way to be utilising the skills of two magnificent footballers.
Definitely not.
So,
all right, that's a very impressive 1 to 11. We'll give you the option of some substitutes, mate. So in no particular order, give us your subs.
Yeah, first one I've gone with Gary Speed. So again, just a great footballer, really consistent. And I've gone with players who've won things. That's why Rob Lee, shock. I know it's a shock, doesn't make my squad, because I went with players who've won things, and he won the title at Leeds United. So I wanted players who'd actually won something. And also, I always felt Rob Lee took a few games to get back to full fitness, whereas Speed just seemed to come in and pick up from where he'd left off if he'd ever been injured. Fantastic in the air. Again, another leader of men, a top player. Sadly gone, of course. Tragic. But a good player, great first touch. And again, I'm going back to this sort of a player who comes through adversity at the club. Because people forget when he came, he was not popular for a short while at Newcastle, and he came through the boo boys, and proved that he was a top player. And I love stories like that, and there's a few players who've done that over the years, and none more than Big Joe, of course. Yeah. And Big Joe's unlucky not to be in the squad, actually. Maybe he's a year or two more, and he would be. So Gary Speed I've gone with. Yeah, I just thought he was great. Yeah, I'm regretting not picking Big Joe now. Well, I've just remembered. But yeah, I'm sticking with Gary Speed. Just a great player, superb player and a winner, which is the most important thing. You've got to have a squad with winners in it. And he was one. So top player and sadly missed.
Okay, and next?
KK. Just great. I love that picture.
It's great, isn't it?
I love it. He was a great footballer. People forget, when he came to Newcastle United, I think it was the year before he'd been PFA Player of the Year, something ridiculous like that, or the Football Writers. I think it was PFA. It was literally about a year beforehand. So within 18 months, he joined Newcastle, so he couldn't have deteriorated that much. 2 years earlier, he was European Footballer of the Year, or Ballon d'Or winner as it is now, twice. So he's Ballon d'Or winner twice. He was that good a footballer. And it irks me that people sort of denigrate Keegan sometimes a little bit in terms of his football ability. They always go, he worked really hard. Yeah, he did. But he became a world-class footballer. He became a world-class footballer. Yes, he didn't have the natural ability that came to him like, say, George Best or Kenny Dalglish. But he worked really hard and became a world-class and a top player. Top player. Great goal record. A great leader on the pitch when he was playing for us. He was fantastic. For a little guy, he was incredible in the air. I'll tell you who's like him in the air. Kieran Trippier's like him in the air. For a little guy, Trippier's magnificent in the air. And Keegan was probably the best short guy that I've seen in the air. Great first touch. Fantastic first touch. He could hold the ball up really well. He had vision. He was always on the move. He would always dart ahead of a player. His movement was second to none. And just and met him as well. What a great bloke, of course, and a great inspiration as a fella. Just a top player. So and I only missed one game that I ever saw Kevin Keegan. It was the bloody first game against QPR because I was on a terrible holiday, and I listened to it on the bloody radio, and I was almost crying because I wasn't at the match in '82. So yeah, KK and transformed the club. Without him, we would not be where we are now. Even under the doldrums of Mike Ashley and all the rest of it, he transformed the club. So, yeah, KK, great.
Okay, next on the list is?
Ginola, David Ginola, genius as a footballer. The reason he didn't make my 11, he didn't score enough goals. I think he only scored 7. which is really not enough. Robert scored considerably more, and Robert was a great goal scorer, whereas Ginola was a great provider as well, actually. But I think Ginola just had the edge for me. His close control was remarkable. I mean, the game that always springs to mind was the game against Middlesbrough with Neil Cox. And he did a back heel and he tempted him forward with the ball. Cox went to get the ball. Ginola just pulled it back, slid it, and went past him as Cox literally went on his backside and made him look like an absolute muppet. And it was incredible to see Ginola. Oh my God, he was just outrageous with his ability, and he could do it with both feet as well. He could move with both feet. He was silky smooth. That little turn where the ball would roll, flick it on the outside of his foot and spin past the man was just magic. And his crossing, it was just perfect every time. It just seemed to ping across, a bit of pace in the air, seemed to bend round, and Les would be just nutting it in. It was just remarkable. He really, really was a remarkable footballer. It's such a shame we only had him for 2 years. And of course, he went the following years to Spurs and ended up being PFA Player of the Year. Again, more fashionable Spurs, I would say, for the writers. But what a footballer! And I believe Chris Waddle was his hero. So I read that a while back ago. So that sort of makes a bit of sense to me as well. You can see the similarities and the inspiration in terms of a footballer. But wow, what a player Ginola was! What a player! Magnifique, I think.
Magnifique. Yeah, Buska did a song about it. Didn't chart. Next on your substitutes list.
Gaza. Would have made it if he'd been there a bit longer, of course. Of course, he would have actually walked into the team, wouldn't he? His best years were probably at Spurs, though. But he was approaching it when he was leaving Newcastle. He was top draw. Jackie Milburn described him as the best young player that he'd seen in 40 years? And that's not a light claim, is it, from such a great player? So yeah, he was that good. He was ridiculously good. Wasted his talent a little bit, you could argue, and unlucky with the injury. Stupid, but unlucky as well. I think it's more fair to say unlucky, because he was so gifted. He was strong. He could score. He had great vision. He was pretty decent in the air, actually. He was greedy, but he had it. He had it all, and the banter with the crowd was always quite funny. There was always a bit of banter going on. He could humiliate the opposition at times as well. He was that far ahead of them in terms of natural ability, especially in the latter part of the 80s, where some of the players that he'd be up against were just cloggers, basically, and would try to kick him up in the air. And he was just a very, very clever and very naturally gifted footballer. There's an argument he's probably the most gifted footballer on my list.
Yeah.
There really is. But that doesn't make him the best. That doesn't make him the best because Peter Beardsley wins that because he had a longer career and did a little bit more, to be fair. But Gaza, natural ability, flair, brilliance. And if you want to bring a few players off the bench to win the game, you're struggling a bit. You bring Gaza on who can open up a defence, or you can Ginola who can whip the ball in, or Keegan to do something, Just a great player. And a good goal ratio is good. 1 in every 4, 1 in 4.5, which is great for a midfielder. He's going to get you 10 goals a season, roughly, and probably more in his prime, of course. Just a top. And again, for a while, probably after Maradona, the best player on the planet, So you can't see any more than that.
Best player in the world in 1990, no doubt about it. Okay, you've got one more sub. Who is it?
It's Alexander Isak, who I've just shuffled in yesterday, as you know. I just had to put him in because, again, if I was to play a squad system, if one of the wingers was having a bit of a mare, he's a player you can bring on. He can go on the wing. He can beat a man or two. He can whip a ball in. He can float inside. He can score. He can play up front. He's really, you can play him in a number of positions, and he's absolutely sensational. I'm just praying that we manage to keep him for the next 3 or 4 years because he's going to be unbelievable. He's got everything to make him as good as Thierry Henry, and I genuinely think Henry's the best player that the Premier League's seen. And I think he's got that capabilities to be on a par with, which I don't say lightly. I really don't. But I think he's got the lot. He's cold in terms of his finishing. He's got just terrific vision. He's got real pace, deceptive pace, because he doesn't ever look like he's going full out. But he was up against the fastest player against Tottenham recently, and he left him in his wake. The guy couldn't catch him. So he's really, really quick with the ball at his feet, and a very clever finisher. There's not just one way to finish. He can finish with either foot. He's not bad in the air. Maybe he's like to say it'll be a little bit better, but his hold-up play is good as well. Just, he's got everything. He really has got everything. A top player. Genuinely world-class footballer. And again, I've used the phrase a lot, but a lot of these players on that list, you know, and you'd hope so after 43 years of going to the match that they would have a few world-class players, and he's top draw. He would make a world 22 at the minute, and I'm not sure that there is a better centre-forward on the planet at this moment. That's how good I think he is.
I would agree. Okay, so every team needs a manager. You've got a few good ones to choose from in your period. Who are you going for?
I have. I mean, as a manager, you'd say the best manager in some respects would be Bobby Robson, but my favourite manager is Kevin Keegan. Just because he changed everything from being a club that was never going to win anything, with very little ambition in the 1980s. Yes, we got promoted and it was great and all the rest of it, but we're never going to win anything, you know, to a man who could make you believe. Without belief, you have nothing. He made you believe. And I think that's the greatest gift anybody can give anybody in terms of football. When we had Mike Ashley, we had no belief. By the end, it was like, oh, what would turn up the match for? Just to talk to your friends again. There was no belief. It was to the point of just, and now we've got belief again. And Keegan gave us belief the first time. He transformed the club from little old Newcastle, where a club barely mentioned, to a club. I'll tell you how big we were at one point, and it was through Kevin Keegan. So, and I was talking about my honeymoon before. In the middle of our honeymoon, Karen and I went to Rome for 3 days, and opposite the Trevi Fountain, there was a sports shop. And in the window, in that sports shop, it wasn't Manchester United, it wasn't Liverpool, it wasn't Juventus, it wasn't Lazio. It was a Newcastle United top in the front window.
Wow.
Okay, and that tells you how far we've fallen, unfortunately. Okay, that tells you how far we've fallen since then. And that's through Kevin Keegan. And that's where we've got to get back to, and I think surpass. Let's not sort of kid ourselves. We didn't win anything. All right, we didn't win anything. So, you know, that's against us. So the next task is for us to basically win something. And I think we will do in the next 3 years. I'm quite confident. In fact, I'm very confident that we will win something in the next 3 years. In fact, I think we'll win more than one thing in the next 3 years. But the day we win something, I will party for a week.
You and me both. So Sid's dream team is as follows. Nick Pope in goal. He went for a 3-5-2 formation. So we had Philip Albert, Jonathan Woodgate, and Fabian Scher. We then had a 5 in the midfield. We had Barry Venison, Bruno Guimaraes, Nobby Solano, the mercurial Peter Beardsley, the lethal Alan Shearer, Les Ferdinand, Shearer's best partner, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Wing wizard, sausage maker extraordinaire, Chris Waddle. The sadly departed Gary Speed. Kevin Keegan, not the whippet. David Ginola, Gaza, and Alexander Isak on the bench. And the manager, KK.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful experience. Did you enjoy doing it?
I did. It was so hard because I'm now looking and thinking, oh God, I missed Joe Linton out. and you look back at some of the players, Rob Lee. I mean, good God, how can you not have Rob Lee and various players like that? You know, there's some players you genuinely loved and thought were top players. So I felt really bad. Trippier as well, of course. If you were playing 4-4-2, I'd probably have Trippier in, but I didn't. So yeah, it's all down to formations as well. So that's the way it works. If I was to do it in 5 years though, I would expect 4 or 5 players to change. So yeah. That's where it's exciting, because I couldn't have said this sort of a number. Obviously, forgetting the newer players, I wouldn't have said that a few years ago with the players that I've chosen.
In the summer, we are going to go and do what you suggested, which is do our worst 11s. So that is really going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to doing that. So, yeah, Sid, thanks very much for your time. Look forward to seeing you on the next talk of the Toon. But for now, Sid, thanks very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Take care, folks. Look after yourself. Bye-bye.